Hello everybody, Tom Morley here from FOSS 365, where we use free open source software 365 days a year. Now it's Saturday morning and I've grabbed my cup of coffee and I decided to devote the day to checking out Blender 2.80. It's not in the release version yet, but it's very close. The user interface has been locked down, so I feel pretty confident I can go in and look at the user interface and nothing's going to change. So they've done a lot of work on the user interface to make it more friendly for people that used other versions of 3D applications to feel at home in Blender 3D. But I'm kind of curious, without reading all the documentation, which I haven't, how I feel when I open Blender 2.80 and kind of look around. So if you're also interested in my reactions to Blender 2.80, then grab a cup of coffee and we'll dive in. Let's go ahead and download it. Go to blender.org, go to the download section. We're going to try the 2.80 beta because it isn't in the release version yet. And I have a 64-bit version, so I downloaded the 64-bit version of Linux. And we will open that up. I'm going to cut that and put that in my root directory of Linux. I created a Blender folder for all of the experimental versions that I want to test. I'll paste it in here. So we'll extract it here. Okay, so it's done extracting. We don't need this file anymore. I'm just going to delete that. I'm going to rename this. I don't need that big long name. I'll replace it when we finally get the release version. Just need it to say Blender 2.80 and we'll fire it up here. Alright. So far everything looks fairly familiar. You got a splash screen and different layout here. So I'm just going to run through the different layout screens that they have here. I know that they have different screen layout for each specific task. So you've got a layout menu, a modeling menu, sculpting, UV editing, texture paint, shading. Oh, that's cool looking. Animation, rendering, compositing, scripting. And I know they even have more. You just hit this plus sign and it will show you even more. So even a video editing one. So let's check that out. Oh, that's pretty cool. Might have to come back to this. I've been using the Olive video editor, but might have to come back and check this out sometime. Let's go back to the layout menu. Let's get rid of the default cube and get something a little more interesting here. Let's bring in the monkey. Bring in Suzanne. And let's rotate it on the X-axis and go to the camera view. Hangout. Just a second, I want to get my Keymon running here. Not exactly sure where that is. There it is. The key monitor will help you see what I pressed down here. So, all right. So the layout menu looks like they've added a section here, which is kind of cool. Let's check it out. Well, if I want to move the cursor to a different location, that's pretty cool. Let's add one more object here. Let's add just a UV sphere. So one of the things that I've noticed right away is they've gotten rid of the right click to select. So if I right click, I get a menu. I'm sure that can be changed in the settings, but I'm going to stay with the default settings that Blender puts out. I've always not really had an issue with the right click select, but it was the only program that kind of had a right click select. So I'm okay with it switching to the left click select. So if you want to select something, of course, looks like all I'm doing now is moving the cursor. I need to go back to the select box here, and now I can left click select on the object that I want. That's pretty cool. If I want to move it, I guess I can click on that. I've got these widgets, yep, that will restrict it into certain axes. That's kind of cool. And can I still click outside of it and move it? Yes, I can. So that's pretty cool. I like that. Makes it very intuitive for new users to have this little GUI on the object to move things around. And these menus over here make it easy, so let's select the Suzanne object again, and let's click rotate. Yeah. A lot like other programs, 3D programs that I use. I like these widgets. It works this way in Godot and some of the other programs that I've messed with as well. So that's cool. And scaling works same way, I'm sure. This should only scale in the Z direction, yeah. These should scale all directions. Did I click on it right? Maybe not. Oh. Okay, so I guess to scale it in all directions, you just click outside of it, scale it in all directions. And what's this one do? Transform. That allows us to move it around. Okay. But that's move and transform. So that's interesting. You have two that basically do the same thing. All right. And why they would have a, oh, if I want to say something, I guess I could use the grease pencil to put something in there. And I also have a measuring tool, I guess, to measure things. That's kind of cool. All right, so that's the layout. What if I want to do a little modeling? We'll go into the modeling section here and just take a look. Before I do that, let's get rid of this object. Okay, looks like I'm still in paint mode, so make sure that I go back to select mode and delete that. And we'll basically just want to model on Suzanne. Okay, so one thing I noticed that I'm not sure if I'll like or dislike, but each layout has its own settings and view. So if you change your view, or if you're zooming in to work on a certain part of the object and you go to the modeling section, it shows where you are at with the modeling section, the modeling view. So I'm not sure if I like that or dislike that. I'll just get used to it, I guess. So what if I want to select just a vertice? I'm in modeling now. Okay, and I'm going to type A because I know that will deselect. Evidently they've changed that. A no longer deselects. Let's double click it. And it looks like you need to double click to deselect all. So that's interesting. A still selects, but to deselect all, you gotta double click A. No big deal. Small changes. I'm sure there's a reason why that makes it easier for some people, but so this should just select the vertice, and it does. How do I move it? Not right click, not center button. So it just selects it. I guess if I want to move it, I got to press the G key for a hotkey, or I have to come to the menu, click on move, and then I'll be able to move it where I want to move it. Okay, that's cool. Don't even know how I popped that up there. So I'm just going to undo all that. And I can use a shift key and left select multiples. Yes, I can. And I can still, I'm on move. If I want to, I can move them in the Z direction. Cool. Yes, very intuitive. I like how everything that I'm seeing so far. So if I don't want any vertices before, the menu was, okay, I see it up here. It looks like this is for your vertex, edge, and face select. So let's undo the movement here and click a face select so that we can try something out here. Yep, face select worked. Let's go down through these menus. We've got move, rotate, same GUIs as we saw before. Scale, same one. So we can scale it in one direction if we want to, or another, or just go outside and select scale the whole thing. It's all cool. Grease pencil again and measure. If I want to extrude, that's cool. Instead of using a hotkey, I can now click on this. Oh, I like that. it puts a plus button here, so I wonder if I can just click on that plus button and move. Yep, I can. So I like that. That's pretty cool. What's the next one down? Oh, to insert faces. That inset. Yeah, inset faces. Click on that. Left click, drag. Yeah, insets face. That's pretty cool. So then if I want to, it can go down. Let's move around here. Let's try an inset again. Okay, that's cool. I like that. I mean, if you're used to hotkeys, then you could use the hotkeys so that it was a little bit easier. Now, if I want to scale that down a little bit, we got right there. I can scale it down in this direction, which is kind of weird. It's kind of scaling it in the direction I wouldn't have guessed. So can I press the X key? Oh, I deselected it. Let's go back to the selection here. And let's click on scale. And can I click X? No, when I click X, a vertice box pops up. So if I left click and start moving and then press X, okay, I can scale in the X or Y, but I have to hold the key down. Yep. That's interesting. Okay. I need to do a little learning on that, I guess. A little reading. All right, so let's say A to select all, double A to deselect. Let's say I wanted to loop cut this. Oh, cool. Just loop cut tool, go over here. If I use my middle mouse button, I go in and out. So what if I wanted more than one loop cut? Can I do that? I don't know how to do that. That's not apparently easy for me to figure out just by clicking on this. I don't see any box. Oh, there we go. What's this? Loop cut and slide. Let me move this box. Okay, so it looks like that's kind of cool. Looks like all of these tools, when you click on them, have a dialog box down here. Okay, I like that. I get it now. So let's say I wanted to have 8 cuts, loop cuts. Oh, it's using what I've already put here, so that's interesting. You see up here, it's changing that because that's the one I'm working on. Evidently, until I deselect it. And that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. So let's move this over here. Can I use the Shift and Alt and still? Maybe I need to. So it's still Control Z. There we go. So it looks like I'm still in loop cut mode. That's interesting. Or that's because that's selected, I'll bet. Yeah, okay. Shift Alt and double click. I want to grab the faces here. See if that works. Yep, okay. And inset these. Yeah, that's kind of cool. Scale it. Again, I could use hotkeys if I really wanted to. That's pretty cool. So can I bevel this? There's a bevel tool right here. Let's click on that. And let's, yeah. So while I'm beveling it, holding down the left mouse button, I should be able to move the wheel, middle mouse wheel, and change the number of bevels, and yeah, it works. So far I'm really liking all these tools. It looks like the knife tool, maybe I want to cut just a section of this. So left click, go through there, and press the space button to apply it. Yeah, so that worked. Oh, I'm still in knife mode. Let's get out of that. Go to right click, select the face, and yeah, the hotkey for inset, and that works too. So you can use the menu or use the keys. So that's pretty cool. So far, I like what I'm seeing. We are using, looks like, click over here, we're using the Eevee engine. What's over here? We got different views, viewport shading. So let's click on this one. It's the rendered shading and see what happens here. We're in the modeling view, so that's probably why it's wireframed. Looks like I'm animating here. So let's throw a texture on here. Let's go over here to the menus where the 2.79 had some stuff. That's the world down here, must be the material. Yeah, let's click on new and let's change that to green. Okay, so it's still not in the rendered view, and I'll bet you that's because if I go to modeling, yeah, look at that. So no matter what you do in the different workflow sections, it doesn't apply to the other sections. So in modeling, I put the render view, but in layout, it's still at where wireframe, I think, or just flat shading view. So I have to change that to rendered view. Okay, that's pretty cool. So it's using the principled shader. That's pretty cool. Let's smooth this object out where that used to be a little bit different. Let's see, we gotta select an object. Let's look at the object menu. See if there's anything for shading. Oh, yep, there's smooth shade right there. Yeah, that's pretty typical for Suzanne unless you subdivide it. So let's go ahead and subdivide it. That should be this wrench tool. It was in the other one. Modifiers, yeah. And let's subdivide it 2 times. It should give us at least a little bit of better look here on Suzanne. That's pretty cool. Let's add a floor. So we're in layout mode. Let's grab the cursor tool. We know what that is, and let's put it right at the bottom of Suzanne so that when we do Shift A to add a new mesh and we do the plane, it's pretty close to where we want it. Now let's scale that. Again, I'm just going to use the menus just because I'm kind of checking things out here. And we'll scale it up. Let's add a new material to it, which was this bottom one here. And let's create a checkered background just so that we have something cool to look at. Let's change the scale of the checkers a little bit so that's a little bit better. Let's change the color of the gray tiles to a red. I just kind of like the old, what do they call them? Greasy spoon diners. I like just like that tile floor for when I'm working. So yeah, it looks. This is the Eevee render, and it looks pretty nice. Not seeing any reflections on the floor though, and the roughness is in the middle, so I should be seeing something. So let's go into the rendering engine, Eevee. Okay, it looks like there's a lot of things that are not turned on. So let's click on ambient occlusion and see what happens. Oh yeah, it changes some shading in the bottom there. Let's leave that on. Let's open it up and see what we got. So we have a distance factor. Let's play with that a little bit. Oh, I like that. So as I move this up and down, you can see kind of the shading changing underneath Suzanne. So that looks pretty cool. But why am I not seeing any reflections? Let's look here. Motion blur, there we go, screen space reflections. So now if I click on that, I should see reflections. It could be because my surface is just too rough. So let's go back to the surface, go back to the roughness here and look. Let's bring that down. Oh, yep, now right here, you can see when I change the roughness, you can see it show up. So I don't want it to be a mirror finish, but probably about there, you can see it pretty good. Yeah, on there. Same thing for the Suzanne. Let's left click and select that. Let's change the roughness on that one. So yeah, there you go. So that we get a little bit of reflection on the bottom. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And this Eevee render is super fast. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So just for this video, just from a, let's take a look at the user interface and see what's changed and see if it's fairly intuitive for a new user or somebody that uses a program, a different 3D program. I think they've done a great job here. Everything that I needed to do, I could find in the menus. I know all of the hotkeys that I typically use, but it's nice for a new user just to be able to go over to the menus and okay, this is my layout. Now I want to model, and I might want to move these faces somewhere. How do I do that? It's a little bit more intuitive now just to see these menus basically right in your face, and I'm sure if you hover over them they basically tell you what they are, which it does. I mean, I really like this layout. It's going to be great for new users. So we'll dive in a little bit deeper into Blender 2.80 in the next video. So thanks for hanging out with me, and we'll see you in the next one.